Hi, I'd like to talk to you about something that's very much in the news. The President of the United States thought it was so important that he incorporated it as a central part of his State of the Union. The Vice President is running around all over the place talking, and it's really something which is not only topical, but it brings very strong feelings about people, to people, about people, and about the Constitution itself. Yes, and I am talking about the word gun control. Now, I'm not going to take a stand on one way or another. I'll leave that to people that are much wiser than me, and there's legislation and all kinds of precautions that they could set up to make possessing guns maybe more difficult, or to make sure that it stays in the hands of the law-abiding citizens. But I want to address you by introducing a thought, and before to introduce the thought, to tell you what sparked this idea. One of my congressmen said, "Rabbi, what do you think about the gun problem?" And for a moment I was taken back. Gun problem? Well, I didn't know there was a problem with guns. I mean, I would understand if a person went into a gun shop and said, "My gun does not fire." That's a problem with a gun. But when a gun fires and fires very well, that's not a problem with a gun. So I, of course, understood instinctively what he wanted, but I responded, we don't have a gun problem. We have a crime problem. That's a major difference. We have to try to help stop and stem crime. But you don't have to do anything to guns. The guns are fine the way they are. Perhaps they're much too efficient. So, number one, we do not have a gun problem. We might, a better said would be that we have a crime problem. But I'd like to ask, why do we have this crime problem concerning guns? And of course, if anyone is involved in anything, you know about the senseless tragedies, innocent little children being killed and murdered by guns. And this is something that's like a watershed. I mean, we're all too familiar with guns being used in wars. We're also, unfortunately, too familiar with guns being used by evil people to hurt and murder innocents. But almost always, there's either a cause or a rhyme or a reason. An adult to an adult, he's upset, there was a resistance, whatever. But innocent children, I mean, that has, in the civilized world, that has never happened. And certainly not in such a horrible, tragic way. So now people are talking about a problem. And they're saying the problem is that people have access to guns. And I would like to suggest people have always had access to guns. And yet there was a sort of a code of honor even by murderers, whether it might have been people that worked for organized crime where, you know, they didn't kill old men, or they didn't kill women, or they didn't kill children, or maybe they had a warped morality. If she's pregnant, they wouldn't kill her. No matter how you say it, there seem to be some standards. I'm saying it half jokingly, but also half seriously. Even murderers have standards. And to the best of my ability, in terms of reading, I've never come across a group of criminals that actually specialized in killing children. So the question then is, why is it happening? Some claim we have people that are mentally not well, they're disturbed, otherwise known as crazy, and that's the issue. We have too many crazy people having access to guns. And I think to myself, number one, I think anyone that's involved in crime is somewhat thinking out of the box, or thinking not in the ordinary way. And I wouldn't be surprised if many people committing crimes could be classified on some level as somewhat crazy or very crazy. And yet they never killed children. And besides, even if you're crazy, and this I'm going to share with you as a true story, though I can't remember, again, the time and place, but there was a gentleman who was working in a mental health facility. I believe it was upstate New York. And they had some very large grounds, and of course the residents were encouraged to leave their rooms, and often they would have an aide with them, and just to wander with the green grass and so on. And on the grounds, there was a parking lot. So there was a chain link fence that separated the grounds from the parking lot. But of course, you could see through the fence. So one fellow who's working in the facility walks to the parking lot, comes to his car, and he goes, "Oh my gosh, look!" And at the left side, he had a flat. So he opens up the trunk, takes out the jack, jacks up the car, and starts unscrewing the nuts to take off the wheel. And for whatever reason, he put it sort of on the path of cars, thinking that no one's going to be moving out, and if yes, they would certainly stop seeing him. Of course, this excitement caused it was a change of the routine, so there were a couple of people, inmates or residents, watching from the other side of the fence. Anyway, as he finishes taking off the tire and he puts in the new tire, just at that moment, a car comes out from the driving lot, drives over the area where he has all of his nuts, and the nuts are scattered all over. And this man said, "Oh my gosh, what am I going to do now?" And he starts looking underneath the car, and he manages just to find one. So he's looking, and he ties it, and he says out loud, and of all the days, I don't have my AAA card. And suddenly one of the gentlemen who's looking, he's a resident, and he's quote unquote crazy. He says, "Why don't you just take off a nut from each of the other 3 tires? You'll have 3 more, and that will get you to a gas station." He looks at the resident, and he says, "Why didn't I think of that? I mean, that's a great suggestion." And the man says, "Just because we're crazy doesn't mean we're not intelligent." And I think you should think about that. I remember growing up myself, a Yiddish expression, "Meshuga, meshuga, aber seichel darf man haben." Crazy, crazy, but you still have to have brains. So even if a person is crazy, you have to have a little bit brains, and brains and intelligence tells you that innocent, beautiful children do not deserve to be murdered. So why does it happen? What is the solution? I would suggest the solution is that we've taken God out of the schools, and we've taken God out of the language of man, and because of that, once we've removed the language that God exists and God creates and God cares, and there's an eye that sees and an ear that hears and a hand that writes, people have lost respect for human life. It has been brought down in many of our traditional teachers that when you look at the 10 Commandments, if you read them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the first commandment is, "I am your God, took you out of Egypt," essentially to believe in a God who takes care of an individual. And then when you get to commandment number 6, it is, "Thou shalt not murder." But according to the tradition, there were 2 tablets, 5 commandments on one tablet, 5 mitzvot on the second tablet. If you were to read it, so to speak, from right to left or left to right, it would be, "I am your God who took you out of Egypt," and then you would read on the sixth commandment, which is on the top of the second tablet, "Thou shalt not murder." And the rabbis point out, why should you not murder? And the answer is because there is a God. And there's a God who took you out of Egypt. And there's a God who cares about every person. And when you open up the Bible, some of the most powerful words are, "And God created man in his image." So if man is just an advanced mammal, well, people kill for food. People kill for sport. They hunt. People could kill out of spite, out of anger, out of rage. And they could kill even a human being, though it's a crime. But it's not that unheard of. The distance, like how can you take human life, doesn't scare them anymore. Human life, animal life, the whole world is it's just all part of the environment. But if we would go back to the basics, that a human being is qualitatively and different than anything else of existence. There are things that live. Fish live, and plants live, and animals live. But life in a human is a gift from God because it reflects God's image. Even crazy people would not kill, unless they have a good reason for it, and certainly it would not be indiscriminate killing to the extent of killing these beautiful innocent children. So solutions, when it comes to legislation, I'll leave it up to our government and wise people. But as a rabbi, the solution to me is very clear. Bring back the belief that God exists, that God cares, God is involved, and God created man. And when we begin to realize the great gift that God has given us, that we exist as a reflection of Him, then even the evil people will be hesitant to take away such a precious gift. May we only experience good news, and may we only hear good news. Amen.